Hashem, the Torah reading for Yom Kippur, Leviticus chapter 16. Also, the second part of Leviticus, Chumash are over there. The second part of Leviticus, the Torah reading for Yom Kippur. Of course, the Asher to the left. Keep going to the left. The second part of the Torah reading for Yom Kippur. To the left, Asher, to the left. Right there is a Chumash right in front of you. Yeah. One, we're going to start the parsha. The second part of, Rabbi Yosef, what were you going to say?
That's if you want to make me co-host, please.
Yeah, okay. So the second part of the Torah reading for Yom Kippur is about the sexual prohibitions. And at one point, my friend said to me, there might come a time where it's illegal to read the Torah in America, where people will say that these prohibitions are racist, are bigoted, and you think that's a joke, but you can see how it could be classified as hate speech. Say anybody and that's what after Charlie Kirk was murdered, they said, oh, he advocated for the stoning of people who he called sexually different. So, but that's the Torah reading for the afternoon of Yom Kippur. But what? One, chapter 16, verse 1. You have the page, Noam?
635.
I don't have that book. So Noam has it. Noam is going to read the first pasuk for us. Hold on. Oh, wait, I was already recording. That was some sensitive information, but I'll still say. Okay, chapter 16, verse 1. Noam, please. Vakasha.
וידבר השם אל משה אחרי מות שני בני אהרון בקרבתם לפני השם וימותו.
Okay, excellent. Basically, the service for Yom Kippur, the Musaf service for Yom Kippur, is really drawn from these next 20. Let me see exactly how many verses. These next 20. Basically 20, 28, 29, I don't know, 34 verses. And it goes through, we're going to read now the rituals that the Kohen Gadol would go through on Yom Kippur afternoon. But of course, this was the first service that was ever going to be done. And the first service that was ever done was done by Aaron. And it was done after the death of his sons. And he was being told about it right after the death of his sons. Aaron's sons died on what day? What day of the year? They died on the first day of the month of Nisan. We know that because it says Uvayom Hashmini. It was the 8th day, but Rashi says it was the first day of the month of Nisan. And this service takes place on what day? 10th day of the month of Tishrei. So he was told about it after the death of the sons of Aaron, but we don't know how much after. So, Asher, would you like to read the Rashi? Do you have the Chumash for the Rashi?
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
So, Lomar.
So Rashi asks the question, why does this verse start by saying God spoke to Moshe after the death of the sons of Aaron? What's the purpose of that?
Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, Moshe Mashal.
So Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah gave a parable. Do you remember who Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah was? Does anybody remember him from a different holiday? Do you remember Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah from a different holiday? Very good, Aviva. Aviva's sharp today. She had her coffee this morning. So she Pesach. In the Haggadah, we say that Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah says, "Behold, I was like 70 years old, and I didn't understand how you remember the Exodus at night." And so then he talked about that. But Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah appears in the Haggadah. So he says, "I'm going to give a parable." Go on. So let's say there's a sick person. And a doctor comes in to treat him. First, the doctor says to him, "What's your insurance?" But then he goes to treat him. Okay, go on. That was a joke. The doctors don't take insurance. We know that anymore. Okay, go on. The doctor says, "Don't eat cold food. Don't sleep in a damp place." And what do you think the patient will do if the doctor comes in and says, "Don't eat cold and don't sleep in a damp place"? What do you think the patient will say?
Listen to him.
You think he'll listen? Have you been to a doctor? The doctor tells you everything to do. Doctor says exercise, cut out alcohol, and stop smoking. And every time everybody just says, "Okay, my doctor said that I'm all going to do that." No, they ignore him. Nobody listens. But
Ba'achar Amar
Ba'achar, so another doctor comes along and said,
Al Tochot Soneh
"Don't eat the rat. Don't eat the cold. Go on. Here, the grab a chumash. Come sit right here, Ellie Bear. You're too far away. Come right next to us. Get my hair. He's here. And don't sleep in the damp place so that you don't die. Shelo damud kederach shameis ploni. So that you don't die like, wow, what a tan there, no, right? You got a very good tan. So you don't die like such and such person died, meaning to say you have to scare the person. Who do you think is more likely to listen? Somebody once tried to sell me insurance. I said I wasn't interested in the life insurance. They said, just lie down. And then they put a sheet over my face. And they said, now will you buy the insurance? This is what you're going to look like. So they're trying to scare you. So the point is that this is another doctor comes in and scares him. He says, if you eat the cold food, you're going to die. If you sleep in the damn place, you're going to die. Go on. The second one had more of an effect than the first one. He didn't hold back with his warnings. He didn't just tell him what to do. He said the consequences. Go on. So that's why this verse is telling us you have to do it exactly. This happened after the death of the sons of Aaron, meaning to say you better pay attention. Oh, Kobe, I wish you would sit closer. So this is why it happens after the death of the sons of Aaron. So meaning to say, we don't want you to die. Go on. Aaron, you better pay close attention, because if you don't pay attention, you're going to die just like Aaron's sons died. Meaning to say, we're scaring Aaron into paying attention, because if Aaron will deviate from the instructions, he will die. And in fact, it is often the case that the Kohen Gadol died on Yom Kippur. In fact, there's a midrash. It doesn't actually appear in the text of the Talmud, but the midrash says that when the Kohen Gadol would go into the Holy of Holies, he had the bells on him. That's the Torah, and he had a rope tied to his foot, so that if he dropped dead because he was struck down because he did not perform the service properly, they wouldn't be able to go in there to get him, so they would drag him out. Because
historically, there's evidence that happened from time to time.
I mean, let's just say there was certainly infighting and politics in the temple, but there's no actual story of somebody dying in the temple. But the Talmud says that in the years leading up to the destruction of the temple, they had to replace the high priest every year because they became a position that was bought rather than achieved on merit. You know, it's hard to imagine because everybody who has their important position in today's society achieves it on merit. So you can't imagine somebody would back then achieve a religious position based upon their political connections. And the Talmud also talks about cases of high priests who got their position based upon political connections, family. One queen appointed her brother. So anyway, they said pay close attention, and they had to train the Kohen Gadol to do this service for a week. He sat there for a week in seclusion being trained so he would do the service on Yom Kippur properly. Because if, for example, he had to bring the incense into the Holy of Holies, and if one piece dropped, he was liable for death. You had a question, Ben? Because your hand is in this position of...
Well, it's just because I'm just mulling over your wisdom.
Not my wisdom. I have not said anything actually on my own, but I appreciate your love. Okay, Nohorai, Vakasha, read the Pasuk Bet. What does your kippah say?
It's just like train.
Well, because there's a beautiful one I once gave you that says Yeshiva Sali Melech.
I don't know where it went.
What? Somebody took it from you?
Possibly.
Okay, go on.
Maybe Noam took mine.
No, Noam's got his. Noam wears his. He wears his in Whitman. At Whitman. Okay, go on.
אחיך ואל
Al Yavo.
יבוא בכל עת אל הקדוש
Ela
מבית
Kodesh.
אל הקודש מבית
Parochet.
פרוכת על פני הכפרת אשר אל הארון ולא ימות כי בעינן הרעה על הכפרה.
Excellent. Excellent, all right, excellent. So let's translate that. So God said to Moshe, speak to Aaron, your brother. Tell him he's not allowed to come. Al yavo b'chol eit el hakodesh. He can't come whenever he wants into the sanctuary. Mi beit parochet el pnei hakaporet. So now we have to go over the architecture of the Mishkan. So the Mishkan, here's the architecture of the Mishkan. So we know that a picture is worth 1,000 words, but I don't have a picture in front of me. Maybe Rabbi Yosef has one on the screen, but it doesn't matter because people here don't have the screen. So basically there's a courtyard with the Mishkan. Then there's basically a tent. And the tent was partitioned. 2/3 of it was what's called the outer sanctuary, which has in it 3 utensils. What are the 3 utensils that are in the outer sanctuary? 3 pieces of furniture. What are they?
Menorah,
The menorah.
the shulchan,
Yeah, they were the menorah and the shulchan, and then the third was,
mizbeach.
which
Like a
was
little-
the golden altar. Excellent. And then there would be a curtain, which is called the parochet. That's what he says. You can't come anytime you want me, beit la parochet, into the Holy of Holies. That's behind the curtain. You weren't allowed to go behind that whenever you wanted, because Asher el Pnei HaKaporet. What's the kaporet? Not to be confused with the parochet. What's the kaporet? What's the kaporet? Anybody know? So what was in that Holy of Holies?
Cover of the ark.
Well, Rabbi Yosef, please. I mean, you are like the Rav. Of course, you're going to know the answer.
No,
So-
but I was going to ask actually.
Wait, let me finish this point before you ask, please. Let me just make sure everybody knows. So inside the Holy of Holies, there's an ark, and the ark we know is made up of 3 boxes: the golden on the outside, then wood, then gold. Inside it are the tablets, the broken tablets, and some other things which is disputed, and on top of it are the keruvim. But between the keruvim, which are, according to the Talmud, winged creatures with the face of a baby's, there are whose fingertips are facing each other, almost touching, and through this hairbreadth space where the fingertips are almost touching, that's where God's voice comes down through. But underneath it, on top of the ark is what? Underneath the keruvim and on top of the ark is the what?
The covering.
The covering, and what's that called? No, not the parochet, the kaporet. The kaporet, it's a piece of gold that weighed 2 tons. 2 tons, very, very heavy. So you couldn't carry the ark because the ark carried itself. Nobody could carry the ark carried itself. And so therefore, we're being told in this pasuk that Aaron, even though he was the high priest, he was not allowed to go into the Holy of Holies, because if he does so, he will die. Ki be'anan, because in the cloud I will appear above the kaporet. So God himself is appearing above the kaporet. So Aaron cannot go in there whenever he wants. Even Aaron, the high priest, he was only allowed to go in 1 day a year. And of course, people could go in to clean, but that wasn't coming in as doing a religious service. The religious service, you're only allowed to go in there once a year. And if you tried to go in any other time, death. That's what the Torah is telling you. You will die. So this was in the Mishkan, but also today, this place still exists. Do you know where this place is? Where on Har Bayit?
Mosque.
No, so I'm glad you said that, Asher. So on the Temple Mount, there's a big golden dome. That's called the Dome of the Rock. But then if you're at the Kotel and you're looking towards the Temple Mount, towards the right is like a silverish dome, and that's called Al-Aqsa Mosque. That's not even technically on the Temple Mount, but that is the holy space for the Muslims, is the Al-Aqsa Mosque. But the Dome of the Rock is the holy space that's the Holy of Holies. So that has supposedly the foundation stone in there where the world was created, and that's where the ark was. But I have not been able to go in there. Jews are not allowed to go in there. And the only people, and even if the Palestinians or the Jordanians would let us in, we would not be allowed by Jewish law to go in unless we were going in to conquer it, which that's politically, yeah.
83 that a lot of people choose to go in.
Yeah, they used to allow Jews, but they don't anymore. Jews, maybe we should suggest it that it becomes part of the peace plan. So, but I do think that there are many more Jews who are trying to pray on the Temple Mount than it never used to be allowed, but now they're allowing Jews to pray there. And a friend of mine told me that he's planning on spending the eve of Yom Kippur on the Temple Mount, and they go up there now, but they still can't go into the Golden Dome. You're allowed to, as a Jew, you could go on the Temple Mount, but you can't go into the courtyard where the temple stood. You could be on the perimeter of it, and you for sure can't go into this place called the Dome of the Rock, the Golden Dome, which was only built. I mean, you can look it up, but I think it was built in the 8th century. I don't know when it was built exactly. Okay, but let's read the Rashi here.
Rabbi Sajid.
Oh yeah, I
Sorry.
cut off you before Rabbi Yosef. Sorry
No, it's
about that.
okay. I just wanted to ask two things. One is, do the Hasidic masters talk about why the word achicha is mentioned here? Because it's the only Aaron that was around at that time. And the second thing is that,
Yeah, we have to look that up. I don't know offhand, but it's a great question. I was wondering that too. Go on.
and the second is like, he knew what happened to his sons, so he wouldn't be inclined to even go into the Kodesh Kodeshim without his
Yeah,
brother
so
instructing him how to.
That question Rashi addressed. He was being reminded so that he would be careful. That he was being reminded to be careful. That question Rashi addressed. Baruch Hashem. But the first question we can look up. Why is he being reminding that he's your brother when we know he's his brother? We'll try to look that up, God willing. Okay, Asher, please read the Rashi. And Colby, we're going to, God willing, calling you to read the next pasuk, so you could ready yourself for this big moment.
V'lo yamut.
V'lo yamut.
V'lo yamut. She'im ba hu met.
She'im ba hu met. He says, don't go in there at all times, because if you go in, if he goes in, he will die. It's that simple. Go on.
Ki ba'anan era'eh.
Because in a cloud, I will appear above the kaporet.
Ki tamid ani nire sham im amud anani.
So basically, the Rashi's saying that it means I am always there with my cloud. God is not in the cloud, but he is appearing with his cloud. Go on.
Ulufi shegilu shchinasi sham.
Because that's where I reveal my divine presence.
Yizar shelo yargil lavo.
He should be careful not to go there. By the way, where is this ark today? And we mentioned this a couple weeks ago in the Daf Yomi. Where is the ark today?
So it was buried under the temple.
Ah, Mordechai, you're so sharp. You see what happens? You study Torah all day and you know all the answers. That's the bottom line. That King Yoshiyahu, before he saw through prophetic vision that the temple was going to be destroyed. And towards the end of the time of the first temple, he decided to bury the ark in a subterranean tunnel. You think we don't know about tunnels? We knew about tunnels. So he buried the ark in a tunnel.
So the ark buried itself.
The ark is buried under the Temple Mount somewhere. So, and in fact, I can give you secret information, which I don't know if it's been made public, but I learned this. Remember when Ariel Sharon went to a tour of the Temple Mount and it was followed by the Second Intifada? Why was he going on the Temple Mount? So what I've heard from multiple sources, anybody hear why? Was he just going to stir up an intifada? No, they were looking at plans of building under the mountain to excavate in the middle of the mountain and build stuff there. So there was like a plan to build, but why would that? But that to me strikes me as that would be almost humiliating that other faiths are on top of our faith. But anyway, that was his plan to like like do some internal excavation of the mountain and build some stuff there. That would have been wild, but you never know. You never know. Okay, go on. Did I cut somebody off? Okay, go on.
Zehu Pshuto,
That's the pshat.
Midrasho, Al Yavo Ki'im Ba'anan Haktoras B'Yom Kippurim.
Okay, so the Midrash says, no, it means that Aaron was only allowed to come with the Anan HaKetoras, with the cloud of the Ketoras. What's the cloud of the Ketoras? What's the Ketoret? And you know, did they teach you that? They didn't teach you that in school?
I'm so familiar.
It's good. That's good. That's half the start. The Ketoret is the incense. And the major service of Yom Kippur for the high priest is he would take a scoopful of incense in his hands, and he would pour it in the Holy of Holies at the foot of the ark. He would pour it into the coals, and a smoke would rise up. A pillar of smoke would rise up. It was supposed to be the hardest task to do, because if one incense fell to the ground, it was death. And this was a major dispute between the Sadducees and the rabbis. The Sadducees were the group of Kohanim who basically thought they ran the show, but the rabbis said, no, we run the show. And so they disputed about what was the way. This, you could think, like, what are they arguing about? But this is the major source of discussion. The Gemara Yoma says that the Sadducees said you're supposed to go into the ark with smoke rising already, that you pour the incense on the coals outside the Holy of Holies. Whereas the rabbi said, no, you pour it on the coals when you're already inside. So that was a major sort of discussion, which proves, to my mind, that people will argue about anything. Right? People will argue about anything. Okay, but I mean, yes.
Was it the blood when it was sprinkled and they did one?
That's going to happen as part of this service. We're going to read it, that the Kohen Gadol will sprinkle the blood. He's going to sprinkle the blood in 3 places. He's going to sprinkle it in front of the ark. He's going to sprinkle it on the parochet, and he's also going to sprinkle it at the golden altar. And we read about that here, and we read about that on Yom Kippur. So we'll read more about that tomorrow. But for now, we will daven mincha. Yesterday, I think we had a really big snafu. We spent the whole half hour of our Torah